Sorry about the raffle, because I don't run these things. I wasn't informed there were secret things around. But anyway, the raffle for the drone from Checkpoint will take place at 1 p.m. At 1 p.m., we'll have a connection between the two rooms. The three rooms. Sorry, it will be a connection between the three rooms. So that whoever wins the raffle knows immediately. And then after lunch, we will have the raffle for the two mobile phones. If you see that I forget about it, give me a reminder. From Root.con, we always make an effort to clarify. If you want to be good professionals in cybersecurity, not everything is about exploiting, reversing, about seeing code and using the best programming language in the world. Not everything is about techie or geeky things, okay? Remember, you need to be aware about legal things. You need to know about the consequences of whatever you do for your own lives. What happens if you go beyond the red lines? Okay. So Tamara will tell you quite a few things, quite a few interesting things. We had a chat about very sophisticated concepts. So Tamara, you have the floor. Thank you so much. Can you hear me? Okay. Let me introduce myself. But first of all, I would like to apologize if anyone feels offended by my presentation. This is not what I mean to do, of course. I'll be talking about constitutional law. Why? Why? Well, this is quite a situation. I'm an intern of the University of León in northwestern Spain in the area of constitutional law, and I'm also a lecturer at one of the master's degrees in cybersecurity at the computer engineering faculty there. So when I tell my students, they keep asking me questions about this. By the way, I'm not a lawyer. I have a degree in public administration, and I think I've come here today to tell you about stereotypes about women participating in this world. And then the fact that the cliche that we are supposed to be computer engineers. Well, I'm not a computer engineer, I'm not a lawyer, I am a woman, and I'll be talking about constitutional law without being a legal expert. Okay? I'm very daring, personally speaking and professionally speaking, so I'm here to tell you about a number of things. First of all, I've changed the title for the presentation. Can a constitutional referendum be hacked? That's the new title. Okay? I'm not using the word national, and that's why I've changed the title.
Can a constitutional referendum be hacked by using ICTs? Is there a chance to do that? All right. After talking to many of you, well, you answered yes, of course. You can do so. If you have ICTs in place, that referendum could be hacked. All right. Okay, let us try to go deeper into it. So what is the structure of my presentation? So first of all, I would like to start with an introduction to tell you more about the topic through the concept which is well known to us, which is democracy. And I would like to refer to it or to extrapolate it to digital democracy. Later on, I will move on to talk about practical questions. Surely you can help me out in there because I'm not have good command about that, but still I try it. As I say, I'm daring enough. And then second, practical questions, a number of techniques to be used. I just wanted to differentiate direct hacking through hacking voting systems, critical infrastructures, or indirect hacking through information delivered or made available to citizens. Then in a third place, I will move on to talk about theoretical questions relating to the legal framework. I'd like to clarify a number of things that are being said and we should not believe, and other things that we should be aware of. And last, what to do in case of referendum. and the relationship with ITCs. Okay, so starting off with an introduction. In the 21st century, when we talk about democracy, we try to think about participative, direct democracy. So this type of democracy seems to be questioned by the citizens. It is also being accused of corruption, and then added to that, we have the democracy being harassed by hyper-connectivity and by globalization. Still, we peoples want to be or feel that we are main actors in our communities, in our regions, in our countries. Takes us to think that whether this model of representative democracy and the shift to sharing democracy is seeing a number of changes here. That is to say, the relationship between democracy and citizens. So those of us supporting this notion try to advocate for the need of introducing that notion through the concept of quality democracy. It's not about participating only, but it is about quality participation in democracy. So obviously, if we are talking about constitution and referendum here, or if we are talking about general lessons, we would say that through them all, this will help us deliver or communicate information to citizens. If we are talking about cost issues, some research says that economic and time costs could be reduced because the results will be would make be faster, and we would also be able to bring this closer to people with disabilities. So in the case of Spain, how does it fit with the Constitution? Well, the fitting with the Constitution could be advocated for through better compliance of a number of articles in our Constitution, especially Article 9, Article 23, and Article 29. These are the articles that establish citizen participation in public issues. Well, it seems that in the face of that democratic crisis, we have the solutions: cyber democracy, ICTs, one e-democracy, and some of the concepts that are linked to citizenship and democracy through ICTs, and that will be opposing analogic democracy. And well, if we have the solution, why aren't we using it on a regular basis? Because we are not as that bad at ICTs. But we know that this type of technologies are being used in other countries, for instance in the US, in several states there, and as well as in other European Union countries. But this is not taking hold in Spain. And me, as a person oriented to the constitutions, I dare to ask you, do you think that there is any article in the Constitution that refers at a given point in time to IT science? Do you think the word IT science is included in the Constitution? Is that mentioned in the Constitution? Okay, this is not an exam. Over there, they say that Constitution does not include the word IT science. Well, I have to answer that yes, it includes that word. It talks about the limitation of the use of IT science. So it is Article 18.4 that led to the passing or enacting of further law. So to me, that limit in terms of the use of IT science and in terms of guaranteeing fundamental rights and general interest. But that word, that term, that doesn't seem to say much, is saying a lot. It is not talking about regulating IT science, but it is talking about limitation of it. Well, this could give us food for thought. It is true to say that in Spain, for minor questions, these ITCs are being used for these minor questions, such as, for instance, participation in local communities through Web 3.0, facilitating communication and information with the citizens and with the public administrations. We are also aware of some projects. I'm sure that some of you participate in research of this kind, research about this topic, and this type of ICTs are being tested for this type of participating processes. So some of the pioneers in this type of regulation are the Basque Country, Catalonia, Galicia, Valencian community. So policy makers. So from the constitutional viewpoints, so if we look at the autonomous communities that are supporting ICTs, this also gives us a clue, hints about the policymakers in those autonomous communities. So these type of things are being tested in some regions in Spain and primarily at a local level. However, implementation of ICTs for more serious processes, for major processes such as constitutional referenda or even general elections, seems that they are not yet a possibility, are not yet feasible. And I'm sure you will have questions about that. When I talk about a constitutional referendum, I'm talking about those referendums arising from Article 23.1 of the Constitution and primarily from 92, 167 and 168 in the third section and Article 142 of the Articles of the bylaws of the autonomous communities. Would like to say that we are seeing an increasing interest in country, not because of the actual process, but because of the polling stations. So answering this question, and the reason why ICTs are not being used for this type of for constitution and referendum is explained as follows. Well, security of cyber security is referred to as the main reason for not using ICTs in constitutional referenda. In this case, when we are talking about security and we end up talking about cybersecurity, we could look at it from two different viewpoints. On the one hand, practical viewpoints and then a theoretical viewpoint, both of them converging in a single interest, that is to say, ensuring the undesired participation or interference in a constitutional process. So using electronic means and the level of trust that the citizens should have in them, to my viewpoint, should answer two questions. Could elections or a referendum end up being hacked? Could you influence these processes through ICTs? We are not talking about hacking only. I don't know whether this is the right terminology anyway. And to answer those questions, I looked it up in the literature, and I focused on, now I'd like to focus on Gilbert. Risk voting, 6 ways of hacking elections. He's referring to US elections. And then there is a paper written by Diego Ramos, whose title is The Doxing or the New Danger Threatening Democracy. So we can discuss this further at the question and answer session. And the question is, which one could be applied to the Spanish case in case there will be an ICT referendum? One of the possibilities that come to mind when it comes to tampering the results of an election is related to the information which is made available to citizens. Yesterday, we had a very productive afternoon on this point. So the information that is made available to citizens is intended as gaining or achieving votes, because public opinion is being built up. So building up of the public opinion is linked to some ICT practices. So, for instance, mailing, hacking websites, or hacking of social networks, boots of hacking. Well, probably if you want to ask me technical questions about that, I would not be able to answer. And some authors also analyze the possibility of creating groups of cyber voluntaries whose aim is to build public opinion. And then, together with that, also a number of techniques also leading public opinion. And on this point, social networks has became one of the best tools to make information available to citizens, as well as fake information. Fake news and fake information has also been a topic of discussion in this conference. What happens here? Well, the world where I come from is trying to put its hands on it, and we have to be well aware of it. Fake news are being debated widely in the legal field or by legal experts, and at the end of the day they are trying to confront some constitutional principles, some of which are freedom of expression, right to information, established under Article 20, under the excuse of security, of delivering security. So this that I'm mentioning is not far away from us at all. Well, in some years' time, fake news will be regulated, and actually the government of Macron in France is proposing a draft law to regulate fake news. So I'm not going to go into technicalities, but anyway, this sounds threatening or frightening to me. If this is brought to Spain, if that is to happen in Spain, we should be very careful at this type of things, because we are giving very powerful tools to people who may use them and make those tools have a significant impact on us. So building of public opinion, media are the fourth power, they will continue to be the fourth power. They create public opinion and they also create scandals. So we heard that yesterday. At a given point in time, well, we always have legal and ethical journalists. However, there is some type of journalism that supports economic interests, is driven by economic interests. We heard that yesterday. Well, we should also not forget about doxing and other ways of gathering information, getting information about the political candidates, those taking part in political campaigns, those taking part in political rallies, etc. On this point, the usual practice would be as following. Putting that information or making it available to the public at the time where most what at the time close to the election date, and that's where this type of information about the political candidate has the highest impact. We should not forget either about the security of the people taking part in these political campaigns, because sometimes not even the minimum standards of cybersecurity are applied. So for instance, that would be my case. I'm a very easy to hack person. And what about, well, personal details are important, but sometimes we are talking about institutional details, institutional intelligence, etc. We will look at that in the second part of my presentation. Through the second group of actions, in this case, I'm not going to discover anything new here, the idea would be to disable the websites of the opposing parties, also getting information about the electorate or the members of specific political parties, or also to get information about the funding of those political campaigns. Also, websites or servers playing an important role in the elections could be highly damaged, could be highly impacted. Let us think about institutional websites and also printing places. So, as I say, Daring, I'm talking about constitutional issues in this cybersecurity or IT security forum. So, I ask you to apologize me beforehand. So, hacking could be licit or illicit. Licit hacking is the hacking that law enforcement agencies make. And a clear example of that is the badly coined Catalonian referendum. So the court number 13 of Catalonia that disenabled the websites encouraging participation in the 1st of October referendum by fulfilling judgments of the Constitutional Court that, according to the judgments 114/2017, declared this consultation illegal. So the underlying idea behind this reflection is the following. Action could be taken, in this case, regarding servers and others, as long as the general interest of the nation is being impacted or where serious damage is being made on fundamental rights, and always with the intervention of law enforcement and security agencies. So this idea is not unconstitutional. Actually, it is very much in line with the constitutional law. The number of technologies, the wide range of technologies available to us, allow us to talk about ICT referenda. And the excuse that is often used for not implementing this type of ICT referendum are just the lack of security. Well, surely some of those ICTs will be more likely to be hacked because they are connected to the network, but you may go and say that other ICDs may not be connected to the network. Well, in that case, then those who claim that those ICDs could be hacked the moment they are installed or set up. Or at the time of scrutiny. An example, the threat of Anonymous to the Catalonian elections on the 21st of December. So we are being threatened, for sure. I don't know who threatens us, but we are being threatened. What I'm going to say is debatable. So I am a strong defender of this type of ICD referenda. However, my premise is as following. So after the election, auditing should be carried out. So therefore, I'm talking about paper traceability, paper tracking, that is to say a check or evidence of the vote that should follow the election process. That will help either confirm the results of the referendum or the election, or to change it or correct it in case of any failure. This is known as Mercury process. This is nothing new. In the case of Germany in 2009, led to declare that one of the electoral processes was declared unconstitutional because the rights of advertising had not been respected. If one of the, I translated for you, if the result has been changed, has been modified, therefore we declare it, we said that it went against the principle of advertising. But if you go and say, well, if it is an open source software, then the court says, well, we are not an expert on that. Well, but then some of you talked about blockchain technology. I don't know what blockchain is, but that is showing everywhere, blockchain for everyone. What happens with blockchain technology? I asked my students to tell me more about it. Blockchain could help us check the votes that we cast, and blockchain will help us to check that real time. However, there are those who say that blockchain could not be used because it goes against electoral regulations. Then another practical question would be about hacking or possible hacking of critical infrastructure of the country. We know that this is difficult, but we also know that it happens. We just cannot look to the other side. We have to be well aware of the dangers, of the threats, and what they entail. Here I would like to refer to the ubiquitous theory from Article 23.1 that says that if the threat comes from any country, we are allowed to prosecute this person under our criminal code. On this point, I'd like to put forward another question. Let us not leave anything up to the interpretation of the courts. Let us clearly establish that electoral processes are critical infrastructure. Let us regulate that under Law 2008-11. But that should be clearly regulated, established in the law. So therefore, theoretical questions, Now let us move on to talk about theoretical questions. Complexity. If I go and tell you, well, if you are going to do this, this will be your criminal accountability, do not believe it, okay? Change lawyers, find a different lawyer, because this is impossible. Before I prepared this presentation, and because I'm interested in this topic, I met with criminal experts, and I told them, well, give me a structure, make a table for me, and I said, no, this is just impossible. If someone tells you you can go up to here, you can make it up to here, no. So there may be changes in the criminal code, and then you will end up in prison. Careful with what you do, when to stop, okay? I like challenges still, and often when you talk to people in the field of cybersecurity, they tell you about criminal or IT crimes, those related to Article 198. No, actually, the article that is applied in this case is Article 264 on Section 2.4, and it talks about a type of crime. As long as it is proven that the security of the nation has been threatened, has been jeopardized, you may be held accountable for it. And if you drop on this type of systems, you will be sentenced to prison. So when we are talking about indirect hacking, Article 197 is applied, which is lighter than the previous one. And before I move on to electoral crimes, another question comes up. That is to say, the need to associate an action to the perpetrator of an action. The practice may be included in the criminal code. However, if it is not proven, cannot be proven, the perpetrator of the action, we are not talking about accountability. Another debate? Open debate is the following. If we are talking about electricity referendum, which does not exist, but let us assume that it exists, could it be applied to electoral crimes? So here it says this is not applied to electoral crimes because you cannot apply it, because these electoral crimes are included under the general organic law, and it says no, this cannot be applied.
Okay.
So this is not applicable. Beware of the interpretation. I would say that this can be applicable. In fact, it should be applied to this type of electoral crimes. We can have general elections, or we can have referendums. The special law takes us to this regulation, in fact. I'm very critical of these things. This is another regulation that should be amended because it is not responding suitably to the reality around us. I mean, this was drafted in 1985, a long time ago, and things have changed quite a lot. Let us assume that we are facing now general elections. To give you an example, take a look at Article 144.1. This is the penalty that would be imposed to anyone carrying out propaganda actions once the deadline has been met for the electoral campaign. Let me give you examples. Mariano Rajoy publishes a tweet and says, "Vote for me because my party is the best." Would that be part of what Article 144.1 establishes? It would. Now, if this is retweeted, would it be part of 144.1? Well, that would have to be interpreted. (146) talks about obstacles to electoral campaigns or to elections. If an electronic balloting system is hijacked or hacked, could that be considered a crime that can be added to the previous one in order to calculate the total punishment for that? Well, it certainly could. And then video conferences. If the video conference itself is hacked, would this article be applicable? Well, there's lots of things. I'm left with a minute, more or less. One more question. If we are considering a remote electronic balloting system, we should pay attention to Special Law number 2 of 1980, approved on the 18th of January, a law that regulates the different types of referendum that could be organized in Spain. Article 16.1 refers to the voting process, so special ballot papers and envelopes that should be subject to a certain size, and that would be printed including the text for the referendum. Article 11 is subject to the terms and conditions established by the Special Law number 5, approved in 1985 for the general electoral regime. So 2 questions. The difficulties we are facing when amending regulations. We need to join efforts. That's the only way forward, in my opinion. That's the only way to use technology in an appropriate manner. So, going back to the title, can we hack elections? Of course, can we hack elections? That is the main motive why in Spain not enough projects have been carried out about these matters. That's why I say that. In certain member states of the European Union, they're in fact taking a step backwards when talking about vulnerabilities. I've seen cases in Holland. Although the European Parliament is pushing for new initiatives. And now some food for thought. There is a real possibility that people could hack a referendum, so we need to have appropriate responses in place. Before anything happens with prevention, during the incident with defense, and with responsibility after the incident has taken place. That could be my final conclusion. Otherwise, Roman will kill me. I'm very grateful for your presence. Thank you so much for attending my presentation. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you so much.
Muchísimas gracias, Tamara. Que sepas que...
Thank you so much, Tamara. They're seeing you from all rooms at the same time. Okay. One question, only one question, please. We're not doing well with time. I'm sorry. I have a very quick question myself. And I'd love you to answer that question thinking about the audience as quickly as possible, please. Otherwise, we will have an excuse to invite you to come next year. Where do you think we should draw the red line for current states? Are we in a world where states should no longer exist as they were conceived in the past? Well, that's quite a philosophical question. I'm very pessimistic, I have to say. the offline state, the analog state as we knew it, is following a track towards postmodernity, if you like, because sovereignty is getting diluted into many perspectives. But then in the world, in the cyber world, we are doing our best to formulate a modern state in the worst possible direction: control, coercion, limitation of public freedom. And I think in that sense, we really need to think carefully. We need citizens to be proactive. We need citizens to tell their authorities, their institutions, their states, the international institutions their states belong to. Citizens must stand up and say, this is not only about restriction. We have gained many things throughout history, and that's it. I would challenge you. I would challenge you to come next year to have a presentation on this, on restricting freedom. Thank you so much, Tamara. Thank you for inviting me. Checkpoint, quickly.